welcome again, wrestling fans, into the Speakeasy. It is a time for another episode of the Matt Stat Show, along with Kevin Hazard and Glenn Gormley. I am a very jet-lagged and travel-weary Jason Bryant after 25 days in 7 countries over 2 continental championships. I think I counted up, you want some Matt Stats, 66 medal ceremonies, and I did not count how many different anthems I had. But boy, what a trip through Kyrgyzstan and the Balkans it was. So back here, ready to talk about some folk-style wrestling and some 3-point takedowns, which is 3 instead of over 3 internationally, or where they have the 2-point takedown over there, or it used to be 1, now it's 2, and we don't have 3s anymore internationally. But man, we're talking wrestling. What's the month of April been as we log into episode 54 here? Kevin, start with you.
Month of April, I watched most of the U.S. Open, and it was as good as advertised. I mean, you had a bunch of high schoolers doing really well, from Bo to Kobe Merrill. I was just, it's amazing to me how well the high schoolers now do at the senior level. I mean, that was unheard of 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, out back in the day, you would have the Mike Farinas of the world. Of course, you can't forget Jimmy Carr, but they were also, look at the weight classes they were. I think Mike Farina was a 48 kilo on the men's side, and he made the Greco team as a high schooler at 48 kilos. Now the lowest the lowest women's weight isn't even 48 kilos; it's 50. So. The size of the diminutive male in the Olympic wrestling is now slidden up to about 125 and a half. Now, other things, and then you talk about Kobe Merrill, though, like that's a heavyweight knocking off a world bronze medalist in Mason Paris. So that one's one that was like, oh, that one, as I was checking the results in Albania, I'm like, oh, that was interesting. So yeah, the access to training, the access to the Olympic Training Center, the access to higher level coaches, of course, more video, just being able to put advanced techniques into the minds and skill sets of kids at an earlier and earlier age is remarkable. So, and if people want to talk about the age thing, that's the senior open. When you got high school kids at the senior open, doesn't know how old you are, because those are grown men that they're wrestling. So, you throw the age thing out of the question there. So that's another good thing about international wrestling too, is when you get to the age groups, that's how old they are. It's not a grade level thing. It's like, under 20 is under 20. So you can't manipulate that by whatever grade you're in. So the naysayers there can just stick it. Anyway, Glenn, your take. Whether it's folk style, freestyle, or whatever. I was just talking about the general Aprilness of wrestling.
I think my biggest take on the whole April thing is, now with the advent of the internet and being able to find out things easier, wrestling used to really end after the NCAA Division I men's tournament. Now we can find out about all kinds of stuff, and it's really great for the sport.
Yeah, I can tell you this: the number of times this year when I told some friends, whether it be in hockey and wrestling, that I was going to Albania for the European Championships. What was the first thing first of all, that everybody that was over the age of 50, and it was a very specific group, 50 and above, would start singing Albania, Albania. Do either of you two get the reference?
No.
Coach from Cheers teaching Sam Malone stats about Albania. You border on the Adriatic. So at one point during the trip, Sean Kenny, who is he works for ESPN, you see him doing college football, college basketball, but he's also one of our college wrestling guys and has done the Iowa High School State Tournament for years. He is the voice of UWW's broadcasts, at least for the Europeans. I stepped into his role at the Asians. He always finds, an Irish pub wherever he's at. That's kind of the thing when he travels. So internationally, we've kind of done that, and we can always go back to when Kevin, your son Brian, Sean and I found, and Tony Rotundo found an Irish pub in Oslo, Norway, with a Scotsman singing American rock and roll. So we found 2 Irish pubs in Tirana, Albania. One was named Cheers, and then the other one was called New Irish Pub. Neither of which had really anything Irish. The one place had Guinness. That's kind of like a standard, but it was like, it was Cheers, but Cheers wasn't an Irish pub in Boston. So,
No.
but it was funny that I'm at Cheers, and I'm going through my head the whole time is Albania, which is from an episode of Cheers. So if those of you remember Coach from that classic
I
show,
remember Coach.
yeah, that clip actually shown up on my reels multiple times on Instagram. So yeah, 20,
I gotta look
25,
that up.
yeah, 25 days on the road. And again, the Albanian Cheers reference. So did do my normal tap rooms, and I did some hikes up to some castles. I'll do a full breakdown on short time about the trip, because it started me on this kick. I was on the treadmill this morning. I turned it up to incline to 14 and just started trying to climb up, and tried to get a hill climb workout in. I felt like I was really good after that on those long drives. So maybe something beneficial about the food came out of it, and the exercise as well, because boy, I walked everywhere for a month. So my rings on my Apple Watch were quite full. So anyway, Glenn, our topic
Yes.
today is...
Okay, today we're going to talk about the changing with the new 3-point takedown rule. And we did a study from the 3 years right before it was changed from 21 to 23, and then the 3 years since 24 and 26. We did it, the men's NCAA Division I Championships. And thank you, Kevin Hazard, Captain McLaughlin, and John Phipps for doing all that research for me and letting me analyze it. Okay, so as always, we have a table of contents in this episode. As Jason always says, don't look at it if you're driving. Okay.
Yeah, because again, that's also the reminder to tell you that if this is one of your first times listening, all the show notes, the slideshow that Glenn goes through is available in the show notes at NWCA Online or on madtalkonline.com. So I have a link right there to the PDF so you can follow along if you're as a passenger or somebody else is driving. But yeah, that's where all this information is coming from. We're not just shooting from the hip. There are visual aids to this podcast,
Yes.
if you're not watching the video and you've got the audio. So,
Yep. And Matt Stats was here to create a statistical library at the request of Mike Moyer from the NWCA. So that's how we started doing all this. And the opinions expressed here are not necessarily that of the opinions of the NWCA, nor do Gormley, Bryant, Hazard agree on every topic. Okay. Wrestling is Matt Stats is a statistical based show. So if we form any opinions, it's based on stats. We do want to give a shout out, guys, to the 4 astronauts that went around the moon. Kevin and I are, of course, old enough to remember Apollo 8, the first one that went around the moon, Christmas Eve, 1968. And of these 4 astronauts, one of them, Victor Glover, wrestled at Cal Poly. Okay. And then one of William Mary's greatest wrestlers ever, Buzz Winchesky, is a rocket scientist at NASA that designs how that thing gets here and back. Okay. Now, the next slide we have, guys, Gormley's been doing this Athlete of the Year for William Mary alumni, wrestling alumni every year. And the same person wins it every year. Kelly Powell ran the Boston Marathon again. She could not train for 9 weeks and still did a 350. That's an 8:49 pace. That's incredible, guys. And her and Dr. Boog Powell were lucky enough to go to the Sox game then the next night, which is a great trip. Okay, every month we do how many teams there are, and the big news is here: Iowa State added women's wrestling to become the 9th D1 school and the 2nd Power 4 school to have it. Jason has done a great job in keeping track of all the JUCOs or community colleges, depending where they are in the country, what you call them. There's now 144 teams between men and women. That's great to have that.
yeah, and again, to clarify, so the NJCAA and then the California Community College Athletic Association, so they're different seasons. The men in California wrestle in the fall. The women wrestle in the spring. So very interesting dynamic there.
Yep.
Okay. On a clear day, you can see college athletics. How about a quick update on some of the events that we dealt with in our 3-part series? On a clear day, you can see college athletics.
Okay, guys, if you happen to live in a college town, which I do, and you listen to sports radio, which I do, it seems like the most popular topic now that football and basketball season are over is the transfer portal. Okay. And that seems to be every topic. And a lot of people like that, speculation and stuff like this. So you always hear it's all about the money. It's all about the money. Well, let's look how many people are in this transfer portal. And as you can see on slide number 12 here, 64% of all men's NCAA Division I basketball players eligible to return are in the portal. For D2 and D3 combined, it's 26%. Now, if this was all about the money, it couldn't be as high as 64 because the people would have nowhere to go to. Okay, some schools would be trying to keep them. Like the town where I live in, they've made the Elite Eight for the past 3 years. Their entire starting lineup was either in the transfer portal or declared for the NBA draft. So, guys, there's more to it than just the money about it. What this is, I do not know. But part of me thinks that this is a vacation for some of these guys. Because if you enter the portal, you don't have to be responsible for going to workouts and off-season stuff. You can't get thrown out of your dorm room. You're still allowed to go to college. You're still allowed to go to the cafeteria. So who knows what the reason is, guys, but it's not just about money. It's something else involved.
You may be locked out of team facilities, though. I think
Correct.
I read one where a guy's key card was turned off the moment he hit in the portal, so he couldn't hit the facilities. Like,
oh
yeah, you're a student. You're not a student athlete at the moment, because
correct.
That was also interesting.
Yeah, correct.
I wonder if did they also miss the team meals at that point, or how does that work? I wonder.
They might
meals. Team meals, these are things that like non-revenue sports athletes know nothing about. That's also one of the things that drives me nuts. Anyway, sorry, I'm not going to go on a power rant this early.
I will answer that question, Kevin, at least for what's happened here in Rocky Top. Almost all times, the revenue sports players that enter the transfer portal are no longer allowed to go to the team cafeteria. So they have to go to the regular cafeteria. So they still can eat.
Oh, the horror. They have to hang out in steerage with Mr. Dawson.
Yeah.
Oh, the humanity.
So you have to hang out with 20,000 young co-eds. I mean,
man. Jay Billis is just so upset right now.
Yeah.
The humiliation of it.
Yeah. So go ahead. Next slide.
What is this month's topic and why did you title it, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For?
Okay. This month's topic, it's the first of a 3-part series on the new takedown rule. The reason I called it, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, the famous U2 band. The guy Bono is a world-known activist, and he moonlights as an entertainer and has made some money at that, apparently.
Bono's the coach at Wisconsin. Bono is the lead singer of U2. Let's just make sure that people don't think that Chris is moonlighting as was he? I don't even know. Anyway,
as an
if
entertainer.
the entertainer was the coach at Wisconsin, they would have no budget problems.
No, they would not.
So anyway, the reason I called it that, Jason and Kevin, is that famous song. Like a lot of people, when I was doing this, said, "Well, you'll find all the answers." Well, we found a lot of stats, but you don't necessarily find the answer to whether it's a good change in the rule or not. Okay. So that was the reason for that. Okay. The methodology, just so everybody knows. Okay. This is, as you can see on slide 17. Okay. This is, our research is done solely at the NCAA Men's Division I Championships. Okay. There was no reason to do women because it's freestyle, so this rule was not applicable. In the last 6 NCAA championships, there were 3,840 matches. Okay. Of those, we had some trouble finding the results for the 20 Rat Tails, 10 in the championship, 10 the consies. So you had 3,720 matches that Hazard, McLaughlin, and Phipsey investigated. Of those, there were 61 defaults. So there were 3,659 matches we analyzed. We did not include the defaults in it because in most cases, there was not a match. Okay. So that is a boatload of stuff, guys.
Okay, so we're talking about the number of TDs and how it changed after the 3-point rules. What did you find in the analysis from the research for the last 6 NCAA championships? Yeah, again, 2021-23, it was 2 points. And the last 3 years, it's now 3 points. So
Sure.
what's changed?
What we did on this, to all the viewers, is we took the total takedowns, which was down almost 8%. Okay. From when you had the 2-point rule to the 3-point rule, went down almost 8%. Then we also did takedowns per matches because, as I told you, we did not include the defaults. Some tournaments had more defaults than the others. It was a little over 8.5% in takedown per matches. Then, of course, as you'll see on future shows on this, that there was a lot more technical falls. So we did the takedown per minute. Okay. This was the most micro we could get on this and the most reliable. The takedowns per minute went down 7.18% from the 2-point rule to the 3-point rule at the highest level of competition. Everything was consistent. It was all the 330 best wrestlers, male wrestlers in the country. Okay, NCAA Division I. So it doesn't really matter which one you use, the takedown total, the takedown per match, or the takedown per minute. Takedowns are down when they went to 3-point value. Okay? Now, correlation does not prove causation, which is one of Stats' favorite expressions. And as you guys have known Gormley for a while, you hear him say it every other sentence. Okay? It doesn't necessarily prove that this is what caused it. However, it certainly was the biggest change in my lifetime in collegiate wrestling, and it's gone down. Okay, so it's something we cannot ignore, and it's gone down enough that even that we have 6 years of study on this, Matt Stats boys in April next year are going to do an 8-year study of it, 4 before and 4 after, to see how this is going. Okay. Despite the decrease in the number of takedowns, a strong argument can still be made to keep the 3-point takedown. Okay? Perhaps you're a guy that's a takedown guy. Okay? Sure, you could think that. But if you're a riding guy, you might really hate the move. Okay? On slide 24, you can see this was the 3 studies we've done the past 3 years. And the reason we did 23 and 24 was they were the 2 closest. Then when 25 happened, we went back further 1 year. Then with 26, we went back further. So it is a little bit biased in the time frame we chose there, but there was logic behind that. Okay, so the delta of the takedown per minutes are starting to go down at a much higher level, which got it to 7.18. Slide 25, and once again, do not look at this if you're driving. The takedowns per minute, which, as you heard me say, this is the most micro we can get on this, from 21 to 26, you have the amount of takedowns per minute for each year in the NCAA tournament for 620 bouts minus the defaults in each case. The next slide, for the people who have pictures worth 1,000 words, shows how those decreases happen. And yeah, it looks like 23 it might have been, a weird situation in there, one anomaly where this happens with numbers, guys. It's part of life. Okay. Slide 27 shows you the total number of takedowns for this corresponding 6 years with a corresponding graph. And this is an example, guys, on slide 28, when you compare it to 26. It really depends how big the y-axis is. If we would break that down, to where 1,000 was the bottom number there on the y-axis, those drops would look bigger. Okay, so I hope I explained that well. Any questions from Jason and Kevin on that?
No, what's interesting is since the start, you go back to 2021, yeah, it's down. But then you see, we look at it's up from last year. Well, but that year before was down significantly, which was up, which was down, which was up. So, lies, damn lies, and statistics, right?
Yep, you got it. You
Yeah,
got it.
I was thinking along the same lines. You did see that drop, but the trend is still downward. But again, it's not going to be completely a linear drop. It's going to vary like that. And I'm really curious of what it's going to be in 10 years. I think in 10 years, we do this in 2 more years, that kind of will, really give you the picture.
I'd be curious if we'd ever go even deeper into the weeds on this, like takedowns per win. So I'd be curious how many guys are getting one takedown per win, or I hate to throw Eddie Ventresca under the bus here from Virginia Tech, but the guy wins a lot of matches
1-0.
without scoring a takedown. So I'm curious on what those types of wrestlers do for the average. I mean, how much data do you need from the one takedown a match, or the guys that win on riding time are really good top and bottom and are just, you'd say he's gritty, doesn't score a lot on his feet. I'd be curious on how much those outliers impact this number, but with 330 wrestlers times 2 matches. But I'd be curious number of takedowns per win. Especially
By
on
the
the
winner,
front
you
side.
mean?
Yeah, by the winner. Yeah, because if you get beat 18-0, well, the takedowns by the loser is obviously 0. So I'd be curious, takedowns per win would per winner in that type of thing, what would be interesting to look at. So something to consider.
All right, can we let our viewers know how we handle the matches that end in a pin, and how comprehensive this study really is?
Okay, certainly, guys. On every pin that happened in these 6 tournaments, Kevin, Phipsy, and Captain McLaughlin, okay, and I got a hat on, he gave me a Marine Corps hat, all went in and did all the scoring category moves for every single pin. Okay, so we know. Now, technically, you could pin somebody, there could be no points in the bout, right? I mean, no takedown, then I choose top and I pin somebody and there's no near fall because I pinned them, right? So you could technically have that happen. But we have every single match that was not a default, every single move, guys. So I hope that explains that well enough to you guys.
Yep. All right, so we've seen less takedowns in the last 3 years. What happened in all the other scoring categories in the last 3 years?
Certainly. What we did is we broke down, as you can see on slide 32, the number of, not the point value, the absolute number of takedowns, reversals, escape, near fall 4, near fall 3, near fall 2, stalling and penalty, and riding time. Of all those scoring categories, the only one that saw an increase after the takedown went to 3 points was stalling and penalty. Okay. Now it makes sense that escapes decreased because takedowns decreased. Okay. And, so that could make sense there. And the same thing with other things. The reason near falls decreased, well, first of all, there was no near fall 3s. Okay. In the first 3 years of the study, that rule didn't change until 24. So, but the total number of near fall points, as you can see on that, have decreased even with the near fall 3 category. So it's an interesting thing, guys, to figure, why has this happened? Why does there seem to be less action in the matches now? Now on slide 33, we broke this down in per match because, like it said, there was 4,296 takedowns in the first 3-year increment. Well, nobody really knows what that means per match, right? So per match, you can see it goes down from 2.357 to 2.155. Okay, so you can see the decrease in all this situation. Okay, which can be really helpful for people to see that. And like we said earlier, the only thing that went up was the stalling. Okay, now slide 34 shows you the total points from each scoring category. In other words, an escape's always been worth 1. So for each escape, you have 1 point. Okay. The takedowns changed from 2 to 3. So we saw an increase in the amount of takedown points despite less takedowns because the takedowns are now worth 50% more. So once you look at this, there are 2 scoring categories where the points have increased: takedowns, and of course, the other one, the stalling situation. All right. Now, you can go, and then we can see this on slide 35 in the per match to make it easier for you guys. Okay. Like currently, there's almost 6.5 points per match with takedowns, and there used to be 4 3/4 about. Now, when you break this down in slide 36 as the percentage of all points, okay, in all these matches, okay, takedowns used to be king with 48.6. Now they're a bigger king with 58.8. That's an increase in 21% from 48 to 58 in percentage points. You don't just subtract that to get the percentage difference. If you add up the takedowns and escapes, all the points, over 82% of all points in a college D1 championships are takedowns or escapes. It's a pretty wild thought. Now, one way to analyze the new takedown rule is if you think takedowns should be almost 59% of all points, or you might think almost 49% was a more fair number. So that, it's a really difficult thing. I'm not sitting here saying it was a bad rule change. Okay, I'm just telling you what's happened to help you make your decision on that. Any thoughts
I
on
tell
any
you,
of that?
I do have a thought on that, and since I am the older guy in the room, I can remember in the '60s when Oklahoma State kind of, they changed the paradigm of wrestling. They take down and release. They do catch and release, to the point where in the early '60s they actually changed the rule from you get 2 points for the first takedown and then 1 for the second all subsequent, and they kept that for 3 or 4 years. So I'm wondering if this might start doing something like this now. Because it's 80%. It's catch and release is what it is.
I can tell you this: I don't want any more nuanced rules because it is damaging to the sport to keep having different. I mean, the rule. It's this. It's only if this. It's only if this. If this and this. If it's a big if this then that formula for. We've seen enough about like what is reaction time. If this, it's that. There's another discussion with, calls and such. But we need to make the sport simpler, not more. Well, what if we do? We try to over adjudicate the outlier. Yeah.
Well,
Optically, I do like the 3. I'm coming around on the 3-point takedown because I believe that if you take a guy down twice, and you give up 2 escapes, and then the third period, why is it a 1-point match when you've scored 2 takedowns and the other guy's gotten it? You've let him go twice, and then he had a choice and got out. Like, yeah, that like 4-3 really. I always think if there's no turns, for example, if the guy who takes down your opponent more times should be the one who wins the match, in its basic simplest form. I realize there's reverse. I'm not talking about reversals and riding time, and but like I just think at its basic core, if I take you down twice, you take me down once, I should have won the match, right? Anyway, that's I think simple is better. But moving on to
well, I have one more thing to talk about. Just something, looking at this, when looking at the data, why do we have a 3-point near fall? I mean, a 2 and a 4 should be fine. Like you just said, Jason,
I think
it's nuanced.
I think That actually is a simplification. One, you got to get at least two. So 2, 3, 4. I mean, imagine how many brick tosses that had potential. Again, we're adjudicating. This is me adjudicating the outlier. Is it 3 swipes? Is it 4 swipes? That extra point is what it is. So I think a swipe is a swipe, 2, 3, or 4. So you get less. Oh no, that was 3. That was 3. That was more. That was definitely not 2. That was 2.5. That should have been 3. You know, you get the challenges. You can just throw bricks for one extra swipe here and there, and then you got somebody in the back that's counting different than the way the referee extends the arm. So that one's a swipe is a swipe. I'm fine with that. My opinion.
There's
I'm not saying it's right.
very few of them, and I just think 2 points and 4 points is plenty. And I think it'd be less bricks if you had 2 points and 4 points.
Yeah, I guess it's the same as the difference from 1, 2, 3, 4 is 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 3 back in the old way. So
Yeah.
again,
All right, guys,
I'm not poo-pooing the idea either way. I just think that
Yeah.
if you might as well have a swipe, just count it. So
all right. So, guys, the next slide here is, what do you hear more often than anything else, aside from Jason and Brian Hazard's voices of the national tournament? It's somebody screaming stalling, okay? And we put the picture of the legend himself, Dan Gable, and it sure looks like he's calling for stalling there. So
I still think that statue is slightly inaccurate, because everybody that, and I've said this for years, Gable called stalling a certain way. Then everybody who wrestled for Gable calls stalling a certain way. Everybody that wrestled for somebody that wrestled for Gable calls stalling a certain way. So when I watched Steve Martin coach at Great Bridge back the first time, he'd do the left arm would go out and the right fist would go up. It'd almost be like, I can't do it on screen here. It'd be like almost like he's stalling. And then when I saw the late Jamie Kelly coaching at Cox High School, I'd sit there and I'd say, he's stalling, and he'd do it just like Stevie did. And Mark Strickland does it just like Stevie does. So it was just, and he does it just like Gable did. So I think that statue needs to, I think they got it wrong on the statue, but who am I? I'm not the designer. I just think that when I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I've seen enough Gable disciples call that one, and seen a lot of IPTV. I think Gable was right-handed, wasn't he? But anyway, to your point, he's stalling, ref. He's stalling. One year, Tom and Terry's mom was sitting right behind us at Nationals, and you heard her the whole time. Come on, he's stalling. And she was the most polite heckler I'd ever heard in my life. So, yeah, it's everybody. It's moms, it's grandmas, everybody's going to yell he's stalling.
And, since we found that was the only thing we saw an increase of being called, Kevin called me the other day, and he thinks we should do eventually one show, dive deeper into the stalling and see what we find on it. But I don't think it matters what we find on it. It'd be interesting. But
would be the longest show ever.
Yeah. People are just going to be yelling stalling because the guy they want to win isn't winning. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway. One last thing real quick on this is, we saw so many bricks at the tournament. I thought we were building the Great Wall of China. Enough is enough on that. I might be the only guy that hates reviews, but that's all I'm going to say.
I hate long reviews. Brian and I were announcing the Big Tens in Maryland a couple years ago, and it's dad joke central. There's Hazard said, throwing enough bricks they could build a house out there, and Brands walks right by. You're right, Hazard. They could build a house out there. You're right, Hazard. I'm just like, and I think it was Tom on that one, because usually Terry's the one that gets a lot more. They both get animated, but anyway, the time. I say this internationally, they get the time on those reviews pretty quick, because they've got old European dudes with the jogger, and it's right there on the video screen, and they're switching camera angles. They do a pretty good job of that internationally. So, all right,
good. Next slide, Kevin.
All right, how about, you talked earlier in the show about the scoring moves per minute. Can we talk about that? And what do you mean by scoring moves? And how did you handle pins in this situation, since no near fall points are awarded if there's a pin?
Okay, the scoring moves, I did not include stalling because that's an objectional call, and the riding time point is an accumulation. So anything in the scoring categories that were takedowns, reversals, escapes, or near falls. Okay, that's a scoring move. Now, if wrestler A pins wrestler B, there's no near fall for that because the match is over. So what we did was we counted every pin as a scoring move to make sure people knew what was going on with that. Okay. Did that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Now, slide 42, you can see the scoring moves with the pin being counted as a scoring move per minute. Okay. Because Kevin McLaughlin and Fipsy broke everything down, the pin times, the tech fall times, everything, the overtime times. So you can see this. And then you can see a graph on slide 43, okay, that shows the same thing we saw with the takedown, okay, where it's doing this because we know from the past on this show, everything but stalling went down. So there's no way it's not going down, okay? And stalling's not included in this. So if you look at the scoring moves per minute with the pin from the first 3 years to the second 3-year group, it's decreased almost 5.5%. Okay. Now that's starting to get interesting, guys. Okay. It's not significant in statistical terms. Okay. In statistics, a result is considered significant if it is unlikely to have occurred by chance. This could have happened by chance. That's why I'm saying it's not significant. Do I believe it was only by chance? No. Okay. I mean, theoretically, you could make a takedown worth 50 and there would be no other scoring after that unless you got stalled out of the bout, right? Okay. Because the guy couldn't escape enough times to win. Okay. So this is something, maybe it's an unintended consequence. Okay. But is it a product of more parity? Could be. Hard to imagine there was more parity in a 6-year period that would be that difference, but it's possible. Okay. So this is something we're going to continue to monitor, guys.
All right. How about just a quick summary on this first part? And I know we're gonna do 3 parts of this. How about just a summary of what we just went through?
Certainly. I'll give you a quick elevator speech here. We increased the takedown to 3 points. We saw less takedowns. We saw less scoring moves. Not saying whether it's a good or bad move to change the rule. That's the quick summary. Hit me up, Kevin.
Okay. Well, that is interesting. All right. What we first started talking, Iowa State. They are now the 9th NCAA D1 school to add women's wrestling. Number 2, 64% of eligible D1 men's basketball players entered the portal in 2025. Is part of the reason getting time off. Number 3, we now have updated stats from the 2021 NCAA Men's Championship for the effects of the 3-point takedown rule. We analyzed 3,659 matches for our conclusions. Number 4, we have seen a decrease of 7.18% of takedowns per minute. Number 5, the only scoring category that saw an increase in the number from 2023 to 24-26 was stalling and penalties. Or is it left hand? That's right hand. Left hand. Okay, number 6.
President's wrestler stalling.
I got a mirror image. With the new takedown rules, takedowns now account for 58% of all points scored. That's a 21% increase. And takedowns and escapes now account for almost 83% of all scoring. Okay, number 7. Let us know if you want to show on stalling. I mean, it's just there's so many different nuances to it. I think it'd be interesting. But stalling is, I mean, Gorms, you said it. It's it's not as cut and dried as the other scoring ways of doing it. Other ways of scoring. Number 8, scoring moves have decreased over 5% in the last 3 years. Number 9, the 5% decrease in scoring moves is not statistically significant, but we'll continue to monitor this over the years, and we kind of think it will become significant. And number 10, in summary, we increased the takedown to 3 points. This resulted in less takedowns, less scoring moves, but it's not a bad idea. Time will help us decide.
All right. Jason and Kevin, you have anything to close the show before I give our farewell?
No, I'm good.
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
I've just,
All right,
I
well-
know that I've been doing my own stats. I've got all sorts of stuff that I've been using. I don't want to say I've been using AI model. I've been using different AI tools to help me scrape data. I do not trust any AI model to do math. I just do not. What I I've used them is to help me build formulas and such within Google Sheets or Excel to help take the data I have and help me teach me new formulas. So when people come in and want to throw this, I'll just throw it in AI. No, you need some intelligence behind artificial intelligence. So those are some of the stats I've been working on. So on the newsletter side of things, I'll be doing a lot of international things, looking at the upcoming Pan Ams, which will be in Coralville, Iowa in early May, and then recapping the Asian and European championships in terms of medal counts and things like that. So we'll continue on with the 3-point takedown rule on our next episode. But yeah, it's there's stats everywhere. You know, I know you guys are more the college side. One of these days I'll have to get a international episode with some of the stuff, and we can talk Fargo, we can talk
Sure.
the continental championship stuff too. But again, the dive into this is the stuff that I know that the folk style and the collegiate purists will eat up, because it's there's actual facts here. Although we also learn with social media and wrestling, not everybody cares about facts. There's people out there that really, really love their facts, but sometimes if it doesn't fit their opinion, they're like, fake news. So anyway, I think it was, I think it's a good start.
All right, guys. Just so the viewers know, the next show, which is Wednesday, May 20th, coming out, it's our second part of our 3-part series on the new takedown rule. That episode is going to deal with the margin of victory and the difference in number of majors, technical falls, and stuff that we've had on this. And on behalf of my co-hosts, Jason and Kevin, see you next month.